Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Tuesday, and welcome to episode 507 of the Welcome to Asgard podcast, where tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the summer box office and how we have right now the potentiality of 3 total billion-dollar films for the summer of 2024. We've already had one with Inside Out 2. Right now, I would say that there is a decent chance, a pretty good chance, that you will see Despicable Me 4 be able to reach the heights of $1 billion, and what I think will probably be the biggest total box office of 2024, not just the summer, but of the entire year, being Deadpool and Wolverine, which is set to come out in about another week, which is kind of crazy to think that it is that close to an actual release date. Also, we'll be talking about some of the updates to the channel. If you followed the community tab, the community section on the channel, you would have seen that there is a poll that is still live, but the end result is still pretty overwhelming. And essentially, it's because of the fact that this stream has now been, or rather, I should say, more accurately, that Tuesday night's main event has been bumping down further and further and further, and now starts even before my stream, even though I, of course, have been here for years now. I actually looked back at it, and I'm going into my 6th year doing this on YouTube, and I've been on the Tuesdays at this specific time slot for a very long time, for probably about 5, almost total 6 years, ever since I started doing the one-man low council back in the day. So basically, once the high council started, I started doing the one-man low council as a way to prep for the high council, so that way I would not stream over them, and then I stayed at that time slot with only minor variation. But obviously, Geeks and Gamers is also a part of my family as well, and so, of course, love to see how well things are going for Tuesday night's main event. But because of that, I have decided to, obviously through the input of the community, people who watch these streams, to be able to change the day. I'll just say that right at the outset, to change the day of the stream. And so this will be the last of the Tuesday streams that we'll be doing here on OMB Reviews. And starting next week, we'll be now doing a Monday stream. So now the streams will be on Monday, and it'll be same time, Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And that should hopefully be able to then be a better time for people that maybe typically like watching Tuesday night's main event and don't want to have to worry about cross streams or things like that, and hopefully is a better day. Overall, 60% of the 113 or so people that voted in the poll have said that Monday would work better for them. That would be the best day for them. And so I try to follow the will of the people as much as I possibly can. And so that is what we will be doing going forward. So next week, again, Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm going to do always everything that I can to make sure that I don't stream over the wonderful ladies over at Force of Light Entertainment, because I know that they have had this time slot of about 6:30, 6:45 to about 7:30, 7:45 for quite a while now. And so luckily, the stream that usually starts here at 7:30, now starting on Mondays, should be at the tail end of their show, at the very close of their show. And obviously, I'll try and work it out to ensure that there is not too much over streaming on them, because as you all know, I do try to avoid that as much as possible. Before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, allow that fire button over, and Odyssey smash the rumble button as well. And we'll talk to the people in the chat tonight about a wide variety of subjects, and I guess a bit of a retrospect, not an official anniversary stream by any means, but I went back and looked into it. And the fact that the first live stream I did was back in June of 2018, and we're now in July of 2024. It's just kind of crazy. It is kind of crazy in a lot of ways. And yet it's been an amazing run, and it is one of those things where it's like kind of weird that this is the last Tuesday stream that I'll be doing for a little bit. And of course, I say all of this while I see my son has still not fallen asleep. I don't know exactly. He just threw a pillow onto the ground. So I haven't had to put a be right back message up in quite a long time, but I might need to if this continues. My hope was that he would fall asleep very, very easily. As of right now, though, that is not the case. I have literally the little security camera up. And so let me just try and listen in for a second just to make sure he's not calling my name or anything like that. He just looks very tired and very exhausted. I'm assuming he is okay. I might leave my headphones on just for a little bit, though, just to make sure that that is not the case. Because the Lady Freya is actually out of town, so my parents are in town. They were able to help out earlier, especially at bedtime, which can always be a little bit of a tough thing. And my hope was I tried actually getting him to bed a little bit earlier because he hasn't been sleeping well. I don't know what's going on. I honestly don't. Because he's clearly exhausted. I just don't know what is going on there. Oh, boy. And, of course, the fear is always like, I really just don't want him to have pooped himself. Oh, okay, his hand's going. All right, so I have not done this in quite a long time. Chat, please update everybody in real time. I believe I just saw in the chat that I do have someone over on Rumble right now. Yes, Kincaid Rumsky. Thank you very much, good sir. So if you could just make sure anyone who joins the chat over on Rumble knows that I will be right back. I just need to check in on my son to make sure that there is not any pooping stuff going on there. So let me see. I have no idea what this even is. All right, I have a be right back screen. Anyway, apologies, everybody. I will be right back. All right, everybody. Apologies about that. If anyone has kids, you know when they are going through that potty training phase and there's that opportunity for them to poop on themselves as they are going to bed, it is not a fun thing to clean up. So I'm just going to keep my headphones on just in case anything happens, but I do appreciate y'all with y'all's patience. Let's go ahead and jump back into it and say hello to the people. We got Snorterpoopus Cuber. Hello, humans and other quitters. What's going on, Snorterpoopus? Thank you for being here, saying hello to me as well. Kimberly G, what is going on? Kimberly G, Killian Shadowcat. Kimberly G, I got your letter, by the way, at the P.O. Box, so thank you very much. Very kind words, and I'm glad that you enjoyed those films. Kimberly G goes on to say, howdy everybody, can't wait to tell Odin that there are 4 DiGiorno Deadpool pizzas. One of them, Wade's Special, is my favorite Lenten pizza, sweet and salty black olive and pineapple. No, how dare you put pineapple and olive on a pizza? How dare you, that disgusts me. I can't believe that Deadpool would do such a thing, would betray my trust in such a way. How dare he? Prince Green, what's going on, brother? Welcome back to the chat. Wendy Hunter, Wendy! What's going on, Wendy? Welcome back. Kimberly G saying, they make a super pepperoni too, so Odin will not mind that one. That is definitely true. I would definitely love to have a super pepperoni. We got Guy in the chat. I love how I always tell Guy, it's like, oh, he's going to ask a question without saying hi. And so now he's like, hi, how are you doing? Now let me just go straight to my question. Stick around, Guy. Come on, bro. Come on, man. Says, do you think Inside Out 2 will make more in the final run, or will Despicable Me 4 make more in the final run worldwide? Based on the numbers that we're seeing right now, there is no indication that Despicable Me 4 is going to make more. There just isn't. You look at Inside Out 2, you look at how much stronger of an opening that film had over 3 days versus what the 5-day total was for Despicable Me 4. I think that's something that a lot of people covering the box office aren't spending a lot of time on, right? So you had an extra 2 days worth of box office, and it still was about 20 plus million behind what the 3-day opening for Inside Out 2 was. So I don't see that happening. Obviously, Despicable Me 4 is doing very well. I do think it has a very good chance of getting to $1 billion, but I think that you're looking at right now Inside Out 2 tracking towards that, crossing that $1.2 billion and probably ending somewhere around 1.4, maybe even 1.5 billion. And I think that you will see Despicable Me 4 have a good chance of crossing $1 billion. If I had to guess right now, if it does cross $1 billion, it would be between $1 billion and 1.2, I think, by the end of its run. There's obviously several countries it has not yet opened in. But as I've mentioned previously on many streams, just because you haven't opened in a specific country, especially people like to bring up Japan, Japan is not always a guaranteed win for anything. And the best example of that is everyone said, man, Japan is going to go gangbusters for the Super Mario Brothers movie. And turns out, no, it actually just performed about as well as a typical Disney, Pixar, animated film, just general Illumination film, a general Universal, like any of those other like typical generic animated films is basically how that film performed when everything was said and done in Japan. So that's where I stand on that still. All right, Forever Sci-Fi, hail to you. Welcome back, Forever Sci-Fi. We got GMonkey76 in the chat. What is going on? Keely Chow hanging out. Thank you for telling people not to cuss. We keep things clean here on the channel. Keely Chow, hopefully I answered those questions. Baby Sif is doing great. I think it's the only one I didn't mention. She is sleeping, went to sleep very easily. Whereas Baby Thor is still struggling a little bit, but no smells. And a double check with him saying, yeah, what's your body telling you? You got a potty? He said no. Okay, there we are. All right, we got the R. What's going on, the R? Hail Odin, God bless everyone. God bless you as well. Also, this reminds me when talking about God's grace, it is the feast of St. Thomas More, who, of course, is a martyr in the church. Also, St. Veronica Giuliani as well. And I was interested because I had noticed that in the different calendars, St. Thomas More's feast day is on a different day, but I believe July 9th is actually when he was martyred, which is typically when a feast day is. So I don't quite understand that one, but okay. Thanatos Felicitas, what's going on? Luke Zilla hanging out in the chat. What's going on? Wayward Noodle, what's up, Noodle? He is a member on the chat. In the chat, I should say. Wayward Noodle, thank you for being here. We got Bruce hanging out. What's going on, Bruce? The Morak. Hail to you. Forever Sci-Fi says, I saw that Archbishop Vigano got excommunicated for calling out the Pope, and Mel Gibson came out to support him. Interesting times. Well, that's also a vast oversimplification of what happened, okay? So the issue with Archbishop Vigano is that he publicly denied the validity of the Pope. That is what he got officially excommunicated for. And so on the merits, that is an excommunicatable offense, because you are literally denying a key part of the church's teaching that dates all the way back to the time of the apostles, right? That the understanding that we have apostolic succession. He's also making a judgment call that he, as a bishop of the church, has no right to individually make on his own. He cannot determine whether or not a pope is an anti-pope, right? Or that a pope is illegitimate. Only a future pope can do that. Only an ecumenical council in the future, united with the pope, can do that. In a most extreme case, the entire College of Cardinals, there's some theological argument, but we're talking about very obscure theological references here, okay? So that is not... So what the issue I have, and this is one of the issues also with Mel Gibson too. Like, I love Mel Gibson, obviously, but one of the issues that he has is, I believe, he is a full-blown what's called sedevacanist, which means he denies that, for one, he denies that Pope Francis is a valid pope, and there are some sedevacantists proper that actually deny popes going back into like the 50s and 60s, but they have no real grounds for that as far as any legitimate power or authority to make such a public declaration. So that's not really the issue. The issue is that they go out of their way to excommunicate Vigano, but you still have heretics like Father James Martin pushing LGBTQ plus stuff very publicly. You have the entire German bishops' conference that has basically been in schism with its quote-unquote synodal way. The issue is not about the individual excommunication of Vigano, because honestly, it is warranted based on the facts of the case. The problem, though, is its selective justice. The problem is that they've gone after Vigano, but they leave very blatant public characters. President Joe Biden being yet another one. Claims Catholic, goes to Mass, for all we understand from what he's told us, still receives the Eucharist, and yet we know that he is a public sinner because he actively promotes abortion. Actively. And goes against several other teachings of the church, in fact, and promotes them, right? Is remotely directly connected to the evil that is being done. But nothing happens to them. So that's the issue there. So just to clarify that, not to go off on that theological rant for too much longer, but since you mentioned it. ZLG, nice, that will work well. Glad to hear it. Yes, moving to Mondays for anyone maybe joining late. Snorpoopa says, I hope I can infest the Monday stream with my presence. I have to see how my Mondays look. I hope so as well. Bruce says, Jeremy is double streaming right now, 298's main event and a Trump rally. Is he actually double streaming? Or is he like taking a break? Because let's be honest, there are enough people on Geeks and Gamers who can run that show. You know, Jeremy can go ahead and do everything that he wants to with the politics. Because he's got, I mean, that's just how deep the bench is at Geeks and Gamers, is that he does not have to be the main one on the stream on the show. So it'd be interesting if he's actually doing like a double stream or not. By the way, I did see a super chat, so let me go ahead and jump to that real quick. So we got Sahil99. Sahil99, thank you very much for the 499 super chat saying, I hear whispers of Edge of Tomorrow 2. Didn't the first movie barely make a profit? Do you see the sequel happening? Yes, so that is a very good point. The first film did not do very well did not do very well at the box office. I think you could argue, I don't know if I've ever done my RCC charting for that one, but I think you could argue that the film, in a best case scenario, broke even, maybe a little bit of profit, but I think if I remember correctly, the film lost money. The difference with this film versus other films that flop at the box office, though, is that the movie did exceptionally well when it got released onto physical media. And so let me go ahead and actually try to pull that up. Yeah, so the film on paper would have actually lost money. So here is the numbers.com. And as you can see, the reported budget for that film was $178 million, and it ended up making about 2.1 times its budget. So whether you're using a 2.5 multiplier for a break even or a 3 multiplier for a break even, the film absolutely lost money. And then you have here, right, this listing of estimated DVD Blu-ray sales, $28 million. But remember that those are not talking and covering every single physical media sale. The fact remains is that the film, once it got released on physical media, right, the initial buying of the film was not very large, but once people started buying it and watching it, they started sharing it and sharing it and sharing it, and eventually it blew up into something much bigger. So it had actually a very big after the fact, and obviously the fact that they've been talking about a sequel now for actually several years is due to the fact that they were able to make money after the fact, right? They were able to make money after the fact, and that was a huge benefit for them, and that's why they were able to do that. But thank you for that super chat. Appreciate it. Let's head back into the regular chat, back to 7:34 p.m. Wendy says, you should have seniority. If only that's how the YouTube space worked. Unfortunately, it's much more about how big is the channel versus anything else in so many more ways. Let's just say if you're a bigger channel, no matter what it is you're doing, you will have a lot more sway. You'll have a lot more sway. KK Rumsky, who's over on Rumble at 734, says here, Geeks and Gamers should work their schedule around you. That's very... Oh, man. That is very bold of you to say. I don't deny that necessarily. I'm kidding. Prince Green, Monday will be good for me. Great way to start my week. Perfect. Kimberly G says Monday works well for me too. Glad to hear it. Yeah, as I said, a vast majority of people chose that. The three options were Monday, keep the Tuesday, right? Deal with the overstream, or possibly move it to, I think Saturday was the other one, because I actually used to do streams on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And so the largest chunk by a mile was to move it to Mondays. So, see, Cthulhu, good evening and happy Tuesday to you in the chat. Absolutely. Morak, thoughts on Twisters? I like Twister, but I have no idea what the point of Twisters actually is. I don't think there is a point. So objectively, my thoughts on it are I don't care. I think it's silly for them to do a remake at this point. That being said, the trailers actually make the film look like it's fun. I think having Glenn Powell as the lead actor is a smart choice. The effects look decent. They look serviceable to the movie that it is. And I have some high hopes. Now, what's interesting about it is, and I remember, covering this not too long ago, is the reported budget on the film. And we still, I think, are waiting to hear what the exact tax credits are. But the reported budget, yeah, so this is something that was in the Oklahoman, because they shot the film in Oklahoma. And it says, could Twisters and this independent movie get paid back for filming in Oklahoma City? So essentially saying that Oklahoma and OKC specifically has specific tax credits. And so therefore, I don't know what the exact net cost is yet for the film. But this is insane to me. Look at how much money is being projected right now, or the estimated budget is for Twisters. $200 million. I'm sorry. I see that trailer, and all I could think of is, it looks good. It does not look like it's $200 million. Okay. And so my thought is that, and now that I'm looking at it, it actually says the Kennedy Marshall Company. So I believe that is Kathleen Kennedy's production company is behind it. Maybe that explains why it costs so much. She does love spending money, doesn't she? But it actually does look fun. It actually does look like it could be good. Joseph Kosinski, who is the mind behind films like Oblivion, Tron Legacy, Only the Brave, Top Gun Maverick. So very talented filmmaker. He actually did the story for Twisters. So that actually kind of raises it up a little bit for me. But the trailers actually look like they might be fun. I think that the film will do okay. But again, objectively speaking, it's like, ugh, why? Forever Sci-Fi. Now we'll be able to use the Office Space quote. Sounds like someone's got a case of the Mondays. I mean, you could do that. You could do the Garfield references. Killy Chow. The most important thing to remember is that you, under any circumstances, you do not under any circumstances cross the streams. Egon from Ghostbusters. No, you don't cross the streams. It is not good. Snora Poopa says, ruh-roh, Thor is asserting his dominance. Yep. Rita Fontaine, Monday will be good, opens me up to watch Midnight's Edge After Dark, which streams at this time. Yeah. Let's see. Kincaid Rumsky, thank you for keeping the fort over on Rumble. Icthulu, insert 60s Batman scene transition. Yeah. Cue Spanish flea, says Prince Screen. Okay, everybody go crazy. I hope not. Snorpoop is after these commercials. Odin will be right back. King, you lead. I'll follow, says the R over on Rumble. There we go. Rob D at 738. Hello, Odin. I learned something new this week. Apparently, the first Beverly Hills Cop is domestically the highest grossing R-rated film adjusted for inflation. That is indeed an interesting prospect. Obviously, I have not gone down the rabbit hole of rated R films specifically, so I do not know what the actual highest grossing rated R film adjusted for inflation is. I know that The Passion of the Christ was up there for quite a long time. Now, let me see here. I mean, that's pretty high. 1984, $234 million domestic. That's pretty high. Also, with a budget of 15, it was 21.1 times its budget. So as a rated R film, even just that stat alone before adjusting for inflation, when your total box office is 21 times over your budget, that's good. And when you add to that it being a rated R film, oh yeah, that's really, really good. Let me actually go ahead then and actually compare this. So this is going to be using the numbers.com. And so we do have to, of course, keep in mind that they use a specific inflationary rate, which may not be the most up to date. But I think it usually is a pretty good comparison. Yeah. So this is actually interesting. Now, of course, we're looking at these numbers domestically, because the one disadvantage that films from the 1980s especially would have over anything else is that you did not have as large of an international audience, as large of an international presence back then. Okay. But here are the numbers.com comparing Beverly Hills Cop rated R film to The Passion of the Christ from 2004 rated R film. And as you can see here, both films made over $1 billion. Technically, the Passion of the Christ made more, adjusted for inflation, the total box office. But look at this domestic. Yes, $753 million in today's dollars for the 1984 film Beverly Hills Cop. So yeah, got to give credit where credit is due. That is very, very impressive. There's just no doubt about it. And yeah, that's really cool. So whether that's the highest of all time, I don't know. I'm trying to think of other films that are rated R that have crossed certain thresholds. So I know Joker, of course, was the last film that was rated R that was able to make a lot of money. And for that one, it actually made $1 billion outright. So unadjusted, as you can see here. Oh my, that's not the right Joker. What is this nonsense? Joker 2012? Why would anyone want Joker 2012? I don't even know what that film is. Let's see. Joker 2019. Let's see. Yeah, so as you can see on paper, Joker, $1 billion, 64 versus the unadjusted numbers. But we all know, as we have just seen, when you adjust those numbers for inflation, that's why it's always important. You get still, wait a minute. Okay, this is very interesting. So as you can see here, the domestic clearly still goes to Beverly Hills Cop, but the international number, and again, I know there are some people that can try to get really wonky with this and say, well, did you account for exchange rates and things like that? Look, the number being reported is in dollars. And so because the number is being reported in dollars, and we know that that's being transferred over from the exchange rate at the time when the film came out, right? Then the inflationary rate is still going to be about the same. Okay, just based off of the fact that it's being reported in dollars. So interestingly, though, Joker made $1.2 billion adjusted for inflation because of that international take. That's interesting. But still, these are three films, and it's probably one of those rare cases where you have very few rated R films, right? I mean, we're talking about a huge span here, right? 84, 2004, 2019. And if Joker had instead come out in 2024, it would have been even better, because you would have been like, what's going on with the fours here, right? Because in 2024, I think that you're going to see a little film called Deadpool and Wolverine also break $1 billion, and actually, I think, has a good chance of getting well over the total amount from Joker from 2019. Also shows you how crazy numbers have changed since even just 2019, even just 5 years ago. How crazy inflation's been. All right, Keely Chow at 738 says, the important thing to remember, okay, yeah. Remember, if you post something and you made a mistake, don't repost it, because my chat thing is just going to pick it up. So just stick with it. ZLG laughing. Kik and Rumsky, back in my day, you just ignored the crying until the kids fell asleep. Well, here's the thing. That is true for little ones. All right. We fully embrace that. The cry it out method, because we obviously cherished our sleep, and we also knew long-term, long run, it would be very beneficial for them. We're talking about a 3.5-year-old who is potty training. And so there's a bit difference there, because if he is falling asleep having pooped his pants, I would much rather take care of it now than take care of it in the morning, when now, because it's uncomfortable, he has it on his hands and it gets on the bed. And yeah, anyone who's had a kid probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's not fun. It's not pretty. So yeah, I'd much rather deal with it now, and hopefully, even better, him call my name and say, I have to use the potty, because then it'd be like, okay, there we go. Icthulu, let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Yeah, I really do wish I somehow had the power to give you all popcorn and stuff while that was going on. Makes faces and does a fan dance, says Norda Poopus. Killy Chat, thank you for understanding. KK Rumsky, Excelsior! Rob D. Odin will be right back after this word from the sponsors he refuses shill for. Exactly. Prince Screen says, Baby Thor, how about another joke, Odin? Kika Rumsky, great time to refill my water. Yes. It's delicious. The R calling Odin a modernist parent. How dare you? Yeah, again, trust me. We did the cry it out. We obviously, though, still want to make sure that they're okay. Just Joe 47, what's going on? ZLG, who's a member, says, how does everyone think of the Acolyte? Oh, it's just awful. Man, oh man. I mean, and it's one of those things where it's not even just like, oh, I'm hating on it because everyone else is hating on it. It's just objectively a terrible show. And I honestly thought nothing would get worse than Obi-Wan. And then this show came along and was like, hold my Bud Light. Let me just go ahead and teach you how to make things even worse, because none of the characters are interesting. None of the stories are interesting. Every episode does nothing, leads you nowhere, to the point where you're either bored, your time feels like it's been completely wasted, or you're just mad. Like, those are the only real reactions that you can get from it. And unless you happen to be one of the very few in their target demographic, which in my opinion can only be people who are either in or have recently come out of a liberal college majoring in gender studies, unless you are in that group, I can't see how you could possibly think it's objectively good. Victor Fontaine, I got my tickets for the Deadpool 3 fan event. Those did sell out really quick. Nice. Obviously, I didn't, because my wife's going to want to see it with me, and so we're going to try to see it. We're going to at least try to see it opening night. But then, obviously, that means trying to figure out babysitters, things like that. It's a little hard to plan this far out in advance, or rather, it was hard to plan that out far in advance, and so I'll probably be able to get that taken care of soon. ZLG, 10 out of 10 for Fem Bosses, yes. Laura, the Mother Major General, Shorty Short. What's going on, Laura? At 740 saying, poop check, yep. And so far, it's okay. He's still not asleep, but hopefully it's a matter of time. Aaron Blackman, what's going on? Print screen. Tag say, I will continue this by saying I had pineapple on pizza today, and it was delicious. You disgust me, print screen. You absolutely disgust me. And you leave me no choice.
You leave me no choice but to declare you excommunicado.
No choice. No choice. Forever Sci-Fi. I read that they are doing a Shrek 5 and then a Donkey spinoff movie. Creativity left Hollywood and isn't moving back. Yeah. But to be fair, it makes sense to me because, for one, think of the actors involved in those projects, and they really haven't done a whole lot. Their careers have kind of reached a standstill in many regards. I think the most active of them has honestly been Eddie Murphy. But everyone else, like Cameron Diaz, like, she did The Box several years ago. That's like the last major film I remember her being in. I'm sure she's been in more, but I just don't remember. And then it's been really fun to see Mike Myers show up in random serious films like Inglourious Bastards. But it's another one of those things where it's like, what has he even done? So you have actors that are really not doing much of anything who would happily take another paycheck. So they're willing. And then also think it wasn't too long ago that we had the Puss in Boots movie, Puss in Boots: The Last Witch, which did very well at the box office and was very well received by, I think, even a lot of people here in the chat right now. We're pretty big fans of it. But I do agree, though, with the sentiment, right? Creativity absolutely has left the window, right? But from a business standpoint, the unfortunate thing, and this is something where it comes back to the audience. Or it comes back, I mean, the ultimate blame is on Hollywood because Hollywood has gotten the audience to this point. But right now, the only persons that can actually enact any change are the audience. The audience has, unfortunately, very little interest in good original stories, especially smaller budgeted ones. So unless you're a Godzilla -1, which means you're a small $15 million film, but you're a part of a major IP, right? Unless you're one of those, you don't really get a lot of attention, unfortunately. I look at the film like The Bike Riders. Fantastic movie. Solid film. Didn't cost even that much money to make. Losing money at the box office. And so if we want better films, more original films, and we want more time and energy being put into them, we got to go out and support them. Now, I say that, and I want to make it very clear, saying we don't just go out and blindly support them just because they happen to be smaller independent films or a Western, right? Because I was critical of someone who, in my comment section the other day, was trying to say, oh, well, we should support Horizon because it's a Western and we should just support to get more Westerns. And it's like, well, no, we should support films that are good films, regardless of what the genre is, regardless of the actors who are inside of it, because supporting bad movies that maybe have something extra that we like and we want to pretend like we want to have more of is just going to feed into the Hollywood machine of continuing to make bad, subpar, constantly regurgitated nonsense. And so that's ultimately on us, though, right? What we choose to see. And so that's why I will always promote good films. And typically the films that I like are usually the ones off the beaten path. Usually. Yeah. Laura says, pineapple olive. Yeah, no thank you. Michael Burgett, what's going on? Says, hey, Odin, did you see the pre-orders are up for Godzilla -1 4-disc collector's edition, 4K and Blu-ray on the official Godzilla website, ships in September? I did. Shout out to Laura, Shorty Short, for sending it my way, actually. But from what I saw on the site and what I saw, it's the Japanese special edition. So my assumption is that there's going to be an American special edition that's going to be available through places like Walmart and Amazon, etc. Because I don't know if I'd be able to get the 4-disc collector's edition if it's the Japanese release. And so not having... I have not looked at the official release for this, and so I don't know if this is the one that's going to have English subtitles or not. But anyway. Wendy Hunter, I like pineapple on my pizza too. Wendy, things were going so well. Things were going so well. Oh, man. Luke Zilla. Tag to say, got my 4K of Twister today. Thoughts on Gladiator 2 trailer and Shrek 5 announcement. So I've already talked about Shrek. As far as Gladiator 2, I will say this. It looks like a very expensive, very passionately made film that is, 20 years past its due, 20 years past its prime, and it's going to lose a lot of money. That's honestly... The entire trailer as I was watching, I'm like, okay, that's pretty. Okay, that looks pretty nice. Oh, yeah, that's right. Reminding us about the first Gladiator. Okay. And then everything else I was just very unimpressed by. And honestly, the entire time I was distracted because, and I mentioned this on Twitter, the entire time I was looking at that lead actor who's playing the main gladiator in the film. And all I could think of was, wow, he looks like Tom Felton. And so I honestly, from the first section, I was like, is that Tom Felton? Is that the guy that played Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter? Turns out, of course, no, it's not. It looks just like him, though, at least in the beginning. That's all I could think about, though. And that kind of tells you, I think, how uninspired that trailer actually was. We got another super chat come in, so let me go ahead and jump ahead a little bit. So let's see. Your average Patriot nerd, thank you very much for the $20 super chat. Says, thanks again for the despecialized editions. Talking about the Star Wars despecialized editions. God bless lurking. Hail. Well, your average Patriot nerd, thank you very much for that very generous super chat. Appreciate it, and you're very welcome for the despecialized set. I hope that you enjoy them. And it's always great to share that set with people because it's one of those few things in the age and era of Disney Star Wars you can actually look forward to watching and be like, wow, I'm actually watching OG Star Wars. This is how it's actually meant to be. This is how it was meant to be viewed. And it takes out all of that nonsense that George Lucas decided to put in the late 90s. And it's phenomenal. It's great. I love it. Ah, man, Toddler Thor is still not asleep. What is this boy up to? It's got to be no good. It's got to be no good. Exactly, Laura. Exactly. Stop pineapple on pizza. Yes, absolutely. All right. Cthulhu had to say, I'm full on board with denying the current pope. The man is illegitimate because of his opinions. But here's the issue, Cthulhu. None of us have any authority to make that type of declaration. So even if I personally thought, I think there's a lot of problems with the things he says. I think there's a lot of problems that will need to be cleaned up later. Even if I think that, it doesn't matter. In the regard of, I have no authority in the church to be able to declare him as being illegitimate. And no one does. That's kind of the whole purpose and the entire establishment of what you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Who was he talking to? Who was Christ talking to? The keys to the kingdom, specifically the keys to the kingdom. That was Peter. Only the Bishop of Rome, his successor, has those keys. It's that highest authority. And so unless there is a future pope or future counselor, anything I mentioned before, we have no authority to make that kind of declaration. Laura says, I don't want an Edge of Tomorrow sequel. I did want one years ago. It's been a little bit too long. Depending on who does it, though, it could be good. Rob D, I bought a 4K TV yesterday. Should I finally jump on board to 4K? Do you think there will be a lot of 4K deals later this year? Oh, yeah. 4K has gone down in price a lot as far as the movies are concerned. I would recommend, especially if you are a collector, if you don't already have it, I would highly recommend, let's see. I would highly recommend getting, it's called My Movies. And it tells you right now, for instance, Groundhog Day on 4K is $13.95. Cliffhanger 4K is $13.95. Leon the Professional 4K, $13.95. Every now and then you can find them for about $10. Sometimes there's bundle deals as well. But they're basically, 4Ks are starting to get to the point where Blu-rays were maybe about 10 years ago. Which means I don't think it's going to be too long before they're available for even less. Because right now you can get a lot of Blu-rays, for instance, for like $5. I would say it's worth it in some cases. I would say don't just replace your entire collection. Instead, I would say if there's new movies that you really, really want on physical media, go ahead and buy the 4K. And then if you have classic films that you really do feel like you need to upgrade, then upgrade those. But don't upgrade all of them. The difference in quality, in all honesty, is not big enough to merit spending that much upgrading your entire collection kind of thing. All righty. Let's see. Gary, Banjo Sandwich, Worthington, what's going on? Hello. Kaylee Chow, had to say JFK was more of a Catholic than Biden, and still not a good one. Bruce, had to say yes, Jeremy was on Tuesday night's main event until he had to go over to the Trump. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. I meant what is he doing them at the same time, which would have been crazy. Kimberly G, I think Live Die Repeat is a better title. Edge of Tomorrow sounds like a soap opera show title. I just think the whole story behind the title changing and the controversy behind it is quite just very funny, very entertaining. And it just shows you how important marketing is, right? Because I believe the original title was Live Die Repeat, and it just wasn't doing well. And so then they decided to change it to Edge of Tomorrow. And I think it was like maybe during the physical media release, they decided to change it. The movie, though, is so much better than the title by a mile. Thanatos Felicitas, what's up, Thanatos? Says, I would rather see a new Sharknado sequel than Twisters. Ooh, dang. Cthulhu. I can imagine for Twisters is Ken Watanabe saying, let them fight. Oh, man. Let's see. Nearside Cyclops, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Prince Screen, who's a member, tried to say, Beverly Hills Cop ran in theaters for 56 weeks. It was huge. Again, looking at those numbers, very clear. Orange Hat, who's a member, you can't stay, just got done with family. Have a good night. Absolutely. Orange Hat. We all know. Family comes first. Appreciate you being here. Wendy Hunter, math. Oh, man. You're right. You are right. I did talk about some math. I did go through the equations, so it is definitely time for this.
Time to see a real mathematician at work.
All right. There we go. Kiken Rumsky says, if you take my IQ in 1980 and adjust for inflation, I believe I am the smartest man in the world. If only IQ worked the same as dollars. Wouldn't that be amazing? Abomination, what is going on? Arak, why do you ban and kick people from your server? Only when they're being complete jerks. So when your only comments, whoever you are, I think I have an idea who you are, if your only comments are copy and pasting someone else's comments, and then when asked, hey, why are you doing this? Your response is, because I can. I can do what I want. Yeah, I'm sorry. Why are you even in the server? Clearly, you're just there to be a jerk. So go ahead, just step away now, Arrock, please. Keely Chow. It's never fun when the little ones pull an Amber Heard. Yep, that is true. That is exactly right. That is exactly right. Cthulhu, wait a minute. How does any R-rated movie beat Rocky Horror for box office returns? Oh, okay. So Cthulhu, here is the thing, okay? When we talk about the box office R-rated films records, we're talking about original run. Obviously, when it comes to Rocky Horror, we're talking about a film that is being played, I think, every weekend in some cities. In some places, it's like a once-a-month thing. In other places, I think it sometimes can actually be even more than that. But the actual, the original run of the movie was not a huge success. Yeah, it made $41 million in total in 1975. Obviously, that's a lot more today. Still, we're not talking about anything even close to that. So yeah, you could argue saying, oh, well, you know, if you include all the films that have ever been shown, the problem, though, is at this point, especially, we're dealing with a film that's so old where your total box office would not even really be tracked to any sensible degree, if that makes sense. And I will say, if you're going to try to, at this point, especially after being kicked out, keep making new names to jump into the server and do the same thing, you're just going to get banned again. So please tread cautiously, because it gets very annoying very, very quickly. Forever Sci-Fi, maybe you can show him the Animaniacs episode where Wacko has to go potty, and he'll start telling you he's got a potty emergency in a bad British accent. He's actually done pretty well. All things considered, he's actually done pretty well. It's only this more recent phenomenon in the last few days, especially, where he's had a lot of problems going to bed. Let's see. Print Screen. Puss in Boots was very good, much better than some stupid blue alien movie that came out that week. Ah, yes. Yes, I know exactly the film you're talking about. Keely Chow. The difference between WWE and Disney Star Wars is that you won't see a Jedi Force slam a Sith through a table. This is probably true. Micro Baguette. The collector's edition that's selling on the Godzilla website still will have English subtitles. It's just like the one they sold in Japan, but made for North America. Nice. Well, I hope they make it available through a different place. Not that I don't trust Godzilla.com, but I'd much rather get it through a different service, personally. Different, personally. Print Screen. I don't know what I just said there. Let's see. The lead guy in Gladiator, Print Screen, says the lead guy in Gladiator 2 reminded me of Aaron Taylor Johnson. I can see that a little bit. Abomination over on Odyssey. What's going on, brother? The engineer in me is flabbergasted at the engineering and probable waste of converting the Coliseum for water sports. Oh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. Forever Sci-Fi just got the Men in Black 4K Steelbook for about $20. Considering the average 4K is considered on sale now at $30, it's a pretty good deal for Steelbook. So it depends on what you mean by average 4K. So as I just mentioned, there's several films that are on sale right now for like $13. And no, I would say the standard sale, quote unquote sale price for a 4K is about $10 at this point. You can find typically most films being on sale between $15 and $20. $30 is actually probably more so the list price these days for a standard 4K versus on sale. I don't know if you meant like on sale being like a discounted rate, or if you just meant like is being sold at this rate or by this rate. Anyway. Let's see. Tiger Mask at 812, you made a comment that, not appropriate for our chat. Not appropriate for our chat. Also incredibly ignorant as well. Victor Fontaine, 3 out of 4 Godzilla Minus One discs have the English subtitles. The 4th bonus material disc is Japanese only. I don't see that one being in the U.S. releases. Okay, so they're selling you a 4-disc special edition with 3 discs? Is that what I'm getting from that? Guillermo Gage, what's up, Guillermo, over on Rumble, saying, I was about to mention Edge of Tomorrow. You say that domestic USA, Canada is 50% at the movie theater, 25% China, so it's about 55% domestic, actually. 25% for China, 40% for all other countries, so it was 110 million in the whole. So yeah, here's the things you have to keep in mind for that one. 55 million take for the US, Canada, right, for the domestic. 40% from all other countries. And then from China alone is 25%. So make sure you don't double count China if you're doing the math right now. Let's see, Kili Chow. And then you have to subtract the budget times marketing, which is usually budget times 1.5. Subtract that from that, and you get your either total net gain or net loss. It's typically how that goes. All right, see, Luke Zilla says, the 4-disc edition of Minus One has subtitles for the movie, but not the special features. Interesting. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that right now. All right, see, Hardwick, what's going on, says, I finally got around to watching Boy Kills World. Bill Skarsgård was good, but it was a mess. The world building and plot were nonsensical, and major twist was immediately obvious. Yeah, I've heard some good things about it. Not a lot of people have seen it, though. Mr. Wink, what's going on, Mr. Wink? Welcome. Guillermo Gage back again. So even with $28 million in physical media sales, it is still $80 million behind. And as I mentioned, this is why, Guillermo, I mentioned it. The sales mentioned on the numbers is only tracking it through a specific period of time. We know this as a fact that a lot of people picked up on that movie much later. And so we know just from how many people have bought the film, the fact that so here's the other indicator. The fact that it got several re-releases, you only do re-releases on a film, and then they went so far as to do like a 4K re-release. I think they even did a 4K Steelbook edition of it too. You only do that if people are buying it, okay? And so that's how we know, right? If you're wondering like how do we actually know it did better after the fact, it's because of those re-releases. All right, if a movie did terrible in theaters, is not selling physical media, you would not do any re-releases for it, let alone do a 4K Steelbook re-release for it, right? And so we know that, therefore, it made its money back after the fact. Also, here's the other thing, too. One of the ways, I did not mention this at the beginning, not only was it because of physical media release that you had this huge expansion, it also, remember, that film came out before all of the crazy streaming services were available, right? The plethora of streaming services you have now. And so that means the studio would have been able to sell the rights, and that's the other key thing. Remember, Edge of Tomorrow was a film, I forget exactly what channels it was on, but it was on basic cable. And that's where a lot of people experienced it for the first time. So that extended that reach. And because they were able to sell it and make money, they have made their money back on that first film, okay? And that's why a sequel is being talked about at this point. So hopefully that provides a little bit more a little bit more information to explain that. Let's see, Guillermo Gage again. So how much more did they sell in physical media internationally, you think, to eventually turn a profit Edge of Tomorrow? So hopefully that makes more sense, what I just explained. Jason Voorhees, welcome to the channel. I just saw that you recently subscribed, so welcome. Yeah, of course, yes. I'm aware of that. It's okay, Guillermo. I figured as much. Okay, that explains those other ones that you tagged in. Let's see. Guillermo Gage became a monthly supporter. What? I wish that this thing would give me highlights of that. I was wondering what that was. Guillermo Gage, thank you for being... I was wondering what that was, so now I know why it has like the little knight symbol next to you. Thank you for becoming a monthly supporter. You're actually my first monthly supporter over on Rumble. So Guillermo Gage, thank you very much. And I guess I'll have to offer... similar benefits. One of the benefits of being a monthly supporter, because also there's very little people on Rumble right now, it already basically is a standard. You don't have to worry about tagging. But Guillermo, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see. Kick and Rumsky says, did General Wingster get a demotion? No, he just named himself Mr. Wing. I think it's quite entertaining. Nearside Cyclops tag to say, just learn Japanese in your spare time. Oh yeah, you know, with all the spare time I have. Guillermo Gage, sorry, I'm new to this. I forgot to mention that I calculated that $110 million loss for Edge of Tomorrow based on $178 million production budget and $89 million marketing. Yeah, I mean, if I had the mind right now, if I wasn't being distracted by my son still not being asleep, and also the potential that someone is trying to either spam or I don't know what in the world they're doing with the Discord server, because now they've created a third profile and it's just like, come on. I would break that down for you in real time. But anyway, regardless of what the official number is, just know it's made its money back. Okay. Again, for the reasons that I gave before about having it sold to the streaming rights sold. I should say the television rights even sold, streaming rights sold, things like that. And then the fact that they've done re-releases, they wouldn't do that unless the film was a success after the fact. Jeremy Sikowski, good evening, Odin. Sorry I'm a bit late. No problem at all. Jeremy Sikowski. Guillermo says, apparently Edge of Tomorrow didn't get a China release. Yeah, it's been a long time since that film came out. And I think that was, yeah, that came out before I was really doing box office coverage, because I started the channel back in 2018. So let me go ahead and pull that up. I don't think I'll be able to have the mindset to do the full to the full analysis. But again, it doesn't really matter as much, just because, again, it did make its money back after the fact. Again, you wouldn't talk about a sequel unless that was actually the case. Let's see. Yeah, $100 million domestic, $266 million. So I've always talked about how that's like the kiss of death. It's terrible to do that much better internationally, because you get that much less money after the fact. It actually made $34 million in South Korea. And yeah, no China release, at least none has been listed. That was back in 2014. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's see. Guillermo Gage had to say, sorry if this annoys you. Will all these messages you've provided lots of entertainment for me, and I only just chipped in a measly $5 after however many years. Well, hey, Guillermo Gage, I still do appreciate it, dude. And no, not at all. Not at all. I always appreciate it. And I especially appreciate the discussion on box office, because, again, when it comes down to doing the math on this, always remember.
Time to see a real mathematician at work.
I'm the guy doing that math right there, so I appreciate it. And right now, you're the one doing it. Victor Fontaine says, by the way, Odin gets 100% of the membership money on the Green Machine. Green Machine. Shout out to Culture Casino for teaching me that one. Green Machine. Kelly Chow, we love it when you do some Steiner math, talk about the box office numbers. Always obsessed with that Steiner math. We don't do Steiner math here, Kelly Chow, okay? We do math. I let other channels do that one instead. See, Guillermo says, so you say that those physical sales registered tomorrow were only for the first few months or maybe a year. So then lots of ancillary stuff over the past decade. Yeah, exactly. Because they really don't, if you go into even the... So let me go ahead and see if I can pull that up. Yeah, especially when it comes to this. Let me see. So if you can go to thenumbers.com, you'll see that you've got units for 2014, 2015, and then all of a sudden it doesn't pop back up again until 2022, 2023. And it says here, our DVD and Blu-ray sales estimates are based on weekly retail surveys, which we use to build a weekly market share estimate for each title that we're tracking. The market share is converted into a weekly sales estimate based on industry reports on the overall size of the market, including reports published in Media Play News. For example, if our weekly retail survey estimates that a particular title sold 1% of all units that week, and the industry reports sales of 1.5 million units in total, we will estimate 15,000 units were sold of that title. The consumer spending estimate is based on the average sales price for the title. We refine our estimates from week to week as more data becomes available. In particular, we adjust weekly sale figures for the quarter once the total market estimates are published by the Digital Entertainment Group. Figures will therefore fluctuate each week, and totals for individual titles can go up or down as we update our estimates. Because sales figures are estimated based on sampling, they will be more accurate for higher selling titles. So this is also why eventually when a film, after the initial release of a film, it'll basically just drop off the map because you have people buying it here and there, and it would maybe not account for 1% of an entire week's worth of sales. And based off of the numbers that I'm seeing here, I don't think that they are going to be... I don't think that they are going to be breaking into those films that had a 0.5% market share, for instance. And that's why you have here the different ranks. So the lowest rank it got before it fell off the chart, it looks like, was about 20th place. It went back up to 15, and then it just fell off the chart from 2015 to 2022. And then randomly in 2022, it got back on the chart, actually. It must have been, again, I imagine maybe COVID had something to do with it. Also, that could have been the date of the re-release that I mentioned earlier. And that's the reason why we could also know that they made money after the fact, because that re-release clearly shows, right, from 13 weeks of release to 405 weeks of release, it bumped back up to 11,000 to actually be trackable, to actually go up to 7th place in the ranking of total films. Let me see if we can actually get even further on this list. Yeah, Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, as you can see, ranked number 7 here, and it had not been ranked the week before. And so that tells us, again, that it's because it was a re-release that happened. So, yeah. Hopefully that makes more sense. Guillermo Gage. Okay, you've told me all I need to know. Good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. King and Rumsky had to say, anyone remember The Edge of Wetness? What? Thetates says, I still like Steiner math. I know. Guillermo Gage, I found out all I needed to know, like back at 8:15, 8:20. Yep. I fall 20, 30 minutes behind in the chat. I do have this little scrolly thing down here because sometimes I need that. What is the Real Mathematician thing from? It's from an amazing off-Broadway play, actually, called Puffs. You can actually find it on Amazon Prime. You can actually you can like rent it to get it. And it's hilarious. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, it's fantastic. Basically, it's the story of Harry Potter, but through the lens of a boy who is starting from the house of Hufflepuff instead. And it's just very, very, very funny. And that's one of the parts at the end where they're having the final battle of Hogwarts. And one of the characters is a guy from New Jersey. So there's 2 Americans randomly also who happen to be going to Hogwarts. And he happens to be someone where he was a math savant, found out he was magical, and then everything he was starting college as a child, but he became a wizard, so then he had to start all of a sudden all over at something he had no idea what it was. And so the whole joke about it is that he's this very super smart math nerd who then has to start doing magic, and he's not very good at magic because he is not naturally gifted in that way. Anyway, it's good. Gary Banjo Sandwich says, is this show sponsored by the numbers 1 and 2? It should be. Hardwick, I have heard good things about Boy Kills World too. Chris Gore, even had a positive review. There were things I liked about it, but it was a huge disappointment overall. Yeah, I mean, sounds like that subjective experience, right? Everyone's going to have a little bit of a different subjective experience with a given film, for sure. All right, caught up in the chat now. So let's talk a little bit more about box office, because I'd already made the announcement, the channel update earlier, right, that we're moving this Tuesday night stream to Mondays starting next week. So Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time will be the new weekly show. And that is to try to get away from the massive audience that loves instead to watch Tuesday night's main event, since they have creeped their time up earlier and earlier and earlier and have decided to stream over my show. How dare they? How dare they? So we're going to move to Mondays. I try to make sure the times and days that I chose were ones that could work, that we're not going to try to, I was trying to avoid to step on anyone's toes. The only one that I know of off the top of my head that it was going to bump up against in any way was the Force of Light Entertainment show, which is every Monday, I believe around 6:30, 6:45. Check out Force of Light Entertainment. Amazing ladies there. Do great coverage of pop culture, movies, etc. Was just on their stream yesterday, in fact. And they end around 7:30, 7:45. So right around the time that we start. So because it's going to be right at the end of the show, I feel a little bit better not having to worry about stepping on anyone's toes. So anyway, with that being said, let's jump back into the stories of what we're going to be talking about today, because with that being the case, let's jump to the chart first. So as I had mentioned in the title of the video, right, this is looking to be the summer of several billion-dollar films, right? Just when we thought it was already pretty amazing that Disney had a billion-dollar film, that Inside Out 2 was a billion-dollar film, that it was well on its way to being able to reach the heights of films from Disney that we have not seen in many, many years, right? This is the best Disney showing since 2019, since Frozen 2, which objectively was not a very good film, but hey, it also objectively made a lot of money. And so it's pretty amazing, right? It's pretty amazing for us to see the numbers that we are seeing right now for that film, right? Inside Out 2, let me go ahead and see if I can actually get these to update in real time, because of course the chart was not loading at that point. Yeah, so $1.2 billion as of right now. The film's only been out for about 4 weeks, all right? And because of that, I'm tracking this film to be able to reach the heights. Let me go ahead and go back a little bit further in my chart to give you an idea, right? So it's actually already reached the average estimate I had. So remember, we have been able to figure out after the first 2 weeks of a film's release, if we look at the total global box office, we can project with pretty good accuracy what the final total box office will be for a given film by doing some reverse engineering math, as I like to say, all right? And in general, most films make about, and you've probably heard this before if you've been around for a while, right? But if you haven't, you know, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Most films make about 70% of their entire box office in the first 2 weeks of their release. So normally it's about 70% of the box office to about 50% of the box office. So in a good case, best case scenario, typically, without the film being a insane exception, which do happen, both in the positive and the negative, right? But if, let's say, a film doubles its total money after the first 2 weeks, okay? That's usually the best case scenario. That's like the max projection of what the average showing is, okay? So think about the range of 50 to 70% really is itself the average. So films make somewhere between 50 and 70% of their entire box office in those first 2 weeks. And so because of where Inside Out 2 ended after the second week, right? It ended at $724 million after 2 weeks. We projected a few weeks ago that the film would end somewhere around $1 billion to $1.4 billion. All right, the film has already in 4 weeks gotten to $1.2 billion. So this film is marching. It's going to hit 1.3 by the end of this weekend. And it has a chance of even by the next weekend after that, maybe even getting close to 1.4. So we're now talking about a film that I think is going to be a chart breaker. And by a chart breaker, what I mean is that it's going to do better than the average range. And then in this case, it's going to be, therefore, more than double, potentially, what it has made so far. Now, if you look to the opening weekend number for Despicable Me 4, all right? So that's our first billion-dollar film, is Inside Out 2. Let's look at the numbers right now for Despicable Me 4. So this film has made $229.5 million in its opening weekend. Okay, compared that to Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 still has the advantage. The other, again, important factor is that Despicable Me 4's domestic total includes about 5 days of the box office, right? It had a 5-day opening versus the 3-day opening weekend for Inside Out 2. Also, Despicable Me 4 had an early release by about 2 to 3 weeks in some international markets. And so, therefore, this opening weekend really honestly is not as impressive as it might seem, okay? Because 229 versus 294, that seems like it's, ballpark. But even that percentage-wise, you see, okay, it's still a pretty big difference. That being said, I don't think the film's going to get to $724 million, right? I don't think it's going to get anywhere close to that by the end of its second week. I think, based on what we're seeing right now, based on how it got an early release internationally in several markets, how it's tracking domestically, where it's yet still to be released internationally, because there's still some countries that it has not yet been released in, I would be more likely to think it's going to get closer to that $500 million range by the end of this weekend. That still would be a very good place to be. So if Despicable Me 4 gets to $500 million at least this coming weekend, to me, that's going to be all I really need to know to think the film's going to get $1 billion. And you might be thinking, well, wait a minute. If it gets to $500 million, if it got to $1 billion, wouldn't that be doubling what it's made so far? Wouldn't that be the higher end of that average range that I've given in the charting? Wouldn't that make it a chart breaker? Based on where this film is, I think it has a good chance of being a chart breaker. Because I do think that it is, right now, well positioned to have strong holds from week to week. Right now, its Monday drop off, right? Its Sunday to Monday drop was in the 50s, which for a film of its size, that's pretty good. It's actually pretty good. So I think what we're ultimately seeing is Inside Out 2 is going to be the biggest kids movie. It's going to be one of the biggest total box offices we have this year. Okay. But because of where Despicable Me 4 is right now, right, being at 229, likely getting to 500 million or around that number, could be higher, lower a little bit, right? That probably somewhere that $400 to $600 million range by the end of this weekend. I think somewhere around 500 million sounds about right. Then that means that the projections will have this film being a minimum of 800 million in the charting that I do, and then a maximum of $1 billion. Okay. And obviously that number will either go higher or lower depending on how close it gets to that 500 million mark by the end of this weekend. But again, it has not yet released in several countries. So this is where we need to start diving into these numbers a bit. So first off, to show you, right, these are the Sunday to Monday drops, all right, because we do have the Monday numbers. $9.2 million is what the film made in its first Monday of its release. So it's a 56% drop from Sunday to Monday. But look what's right behind it. 25 days in release, right, almost a full month ago, Inside Out 2 came out, and it made $3.8 million. And it also only dropped 55% from its previous time. Going to Despicable Me 4 first, okay? Right now, the domestic has an edge. That's a good thing. But it's important to keep in mind that when it comes to this movie, even though it did get an early release internationally in several markets, right? So, for instance, in Argentina, Australia, it's been out since June 20th. It's been out since June 27th in Bolivia, Bosnia, Herzegovina. Sorry about that. And it also in Chile as well. So not the biggest markets in the world, right? Of those markets that got an early release, looks like Australia was the largest at 16.1 million. Let's see where it got released in Mexico. July 4th. Okay, so it's made the most. It's also it'll probably end up making the most. I think Mexico is going to definitely surpass that of Australia since it got a July 4th release and it's only been out for about 5 days in Mexico at this point in time. But here's the other important factor to think about. Okay, right now it is July 9th. So it has not released yet in Austria. It has not released yet in China. Now, China's a bit of fool's gold because even if it shows up $100 million total in China by the end of its run there. It only gets $25 million from that. So again, yeah, that's not nothing, but it's also not nearly as much as it might seem. It doesn't get released in, it gets released in France, I should say, actually tomorrow. Germany, not until the 11th does it get released there. Japan, not until the 19th. Inside Out 2 does not get released in Japan until, I believe, August. So it's going to have a bit of an advantage there too. Basically, what I'm trying to point out, though, is that we have right now early numbers from the international, but there's also a lot of those pieces that are missing from the international because they've not yet been released in several key countries, right? Key meaning that they typically are some of the highest grossing of a film's typical run. And in fact, because we like to do things live here on OMB Reviews, let me go ahead and see if I can actually pull up Despicable Me 3. All right, the last film of the franchise, of the Despicable Me proper franchise, I should say. So let's look at the internationals here, okay? So as you can see, okay, China, okay, unadjusted for inflation here. China, $152 million. So as I mentioned, it's not as much money as it looks like, okay, because they only get 25% of that. So if it was $100 million, we'd give it 25. We would say that this one, $152 million would be maybe closer to 50 million. So that's a bit better. Okay, that's a bit better. Japan, 66 million is what the third film did. Okay, so will the film do better or worse than that? Most likely. Modern films don't do as well as the older films do typically. So as you can see, though, right, these are the two biggest markets from and for Despicable Me 3. So the fact that these markets have not yet been tapped into by this current film is why, even if the movie does only get to about $500 million, why I think $1 billion is very much a prospect for the film, okay? Especially if China shows up in a similar fashion. Now, remember that this one was back in 2017, and so it'd probably be more appropriate for us to instead go into the Despicable Me franchise. And let's see, before this, it was Rise of Gru, which got to 939. So it was almost $1 billion film there. Obviously, the international market has improved quite a bit since 2022. And in that area, the UK was the biggest, then Mexico. Germany was 35 million. Germany was one of those countries that I had mentioned, right? I believe. China was 34. So a lot less there, as you can see. And so therefore, 25% of that, really not much of anything. Really doesn't make up that significance of a difference. Japan, 32 million. So we're probably likely to see 32 million or close to 32 million for this one in Japan, right? With kind of a ceiling of around 66 million based on the numbers that we're seeing right now. And again, all these numbers unadjusted for inflation, but that's the reason why, for anyone wondering why I've spent time on this one, why I think that will be our second $1 billion film of the year, right? Right now, everything is going in its favor. All of the factors that we have, all of the math that we have, all the numbers that we have seem to indicate that that's what's going to happen. Okay. And that, of course, is the last film that I think is going to make $1 billion. And that is Deadpool and Wolverine. Okay. And ultimately, why do I think this film's going to make $1 billion? Because the pre-sales for this thing have been crazy. And I'm the first one to say, okay, look, pre-sales can be a bit of fool's gold. I say that a lot about things being fool's gold, but it's true for this too. And I go back always to Solo: A Star Wars Story. I remember as we were getting close to that film and it film being released, there was already talk about, oh man, the pre-sales for it had been very strong. The film was a massive flop. Not just because of its budget, but even in a most general sense, okay? So pre-sales don't mean necessarily much of anything unless you have, at the same time, day of the movie, day of the showing, people showing up. However, a lot of us can look at this ancillary data, right? We can go to our local theater and we could say, yeah, all right, how many tickets have been sold right now for those opening show times? It was Victor Fontaine, I think it was Victor Fontaine. Apologies if not, but someone mentioned in the chat earlier that they've already got their tickets to the fan event and that it sold out very quickly. Okay. That's also one of those key indicators. It's clear to me that there are a lot of people who are interested in this movie. The marketing for it has been spot on. The hype for it is real. I think that as we get closer to the release, we're probably going to get some teases of things. Basically, I'm being constantly reminded of Spider-Man No Way Home. What that movie was able to do to build up hype, to build up excitement, and what happened? It was destroying the whole COVID narrative. I'm getting that same sentiment with this movie. The more impressive part about this part of the equation, though, is that this is a rated R film, right? This is a rated R film. And making the kind of money that right now it's on track to make, because it's looking at a close to north of $200 million opening, and that's just in the domestic market, right? That's just in the domestic market. Let me go ahead and actually switch this over real quick just to make sure that we can get some updated numbers here to keep me honest. Let's see. We need Deadpool and Wolverine. What are the most recent? Let's see. Deadpool Wolverine director Sean Levy teases cameos in Marvel film. There's a lot of characters. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, here was the tracking, at least according to Deadline. Deadpool Wolverine hits 3-week box office tracking record R-rated opening in store and best year to date at 165. So right now, this was as of July 3rd. It was tracking towards $165 million in just the domestic opening. You go to Box Office Theory, and let's see what their 5-week tracking has. So this is going to go about quite a ways. And as of the last update, he's projecting, and this is the same guy who used to work for Box Office Pro, just to give you an idea of who he is. He's projecting 175 to 214. So roughly a $992 million. So that's just domestically. So we're talking about a movie that likely is going to make $400 million maybe plus in its opening globally, and it's a rated R film. So even if Inside Out 2 has a higher end domestic, because his range for the domestic is only 385 to 514, I think Deadpool has a very good chance of winning the international game. And when you have an opening like this, and again, this would be the highest domestic opening of the year so far. This would be higher than the 155 million opening that was already impressive for Inside Out 2, for instance. Okay? When we're talking about numbers like this is actually, and once we get the official estimates, I'll be able to do a comparison of the other Deadpool films. Something tells me, though, this is going to be the best opening for a Deadpool movie. It's going to be one of the best openings for a rated R film. It's got all of the hallmarks, right? If your average domestic is 385, so almost $400 million to $500 million, okay. You don't need to make that much more internationally then to be able to hit $1 billion. And with where it's tracking, with where the excitement level is for this movie, where the marketing is for this movie, I think that'll be our third $1 billion film for this summer. So yeah, $3 billion movies in the summer 2024. I don't think anyone could have predicted this happening. I know there are some out there saying, well, I knew it could happen and I was predicting a blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. Okay. Toot your own horn. But the fact remains, all right? The fact remains. This is insane, right? This was something that we did not expect. And it's great for the box office. It's great for our theaters, for sure. But does this mean that everything is back? Everything is hunky-dory? I would have to say no. And the reason why? Okay, you still have independent films like Bike Riders flopping. You still have major releases like Furiosa flopping. That has all also happened this summer. And I think that there will probably be other films coming out that will also flop. You have Fly Me to the Moon right now projected to get to make around $8 to $12 million in its domestic opening. And right now, Deadline's running with that as saying that's an impressive number. Okay, big problem. The reported budget is $100 million. Yeah, you're not making your money back on 8 to 12 million domestic. Okay? So that should probably bring us back down to earth, right? This Fly Me to the Moon from Sony and Apple is going to be a net loser. Twisters is expected to make $71 to $83 million. Maybe that film has a chance of $100 million domestic, because I do think that the marketing has been effective. And its overall total domestic is right now being projected by Box Office Theory as being $242 to $325. Here's the problem, though. The reported budget is $200 million. Now, what the net cost is, we have to wait. But that's a lot of money that you need to make to break even. So Twisters could actually also be a major flop. And then it won't be until Deadpool Wolverine the week after, so 7/26. So sorry, actually not a week from this week, still 2 weeks away. 7/26 is the release for Deadpool and Wolverine. That's going to be the next major release that we have that I think will make a lot of money. And after that, we get towards the end of summer, at least for me, as a teacher going back to school beginning of August, and we get films like Harold the Purple Crayon and Trap and Borderlands, and right now, none of those are really looking all that impressive. Now, I, of course, have not looked at all their budgets, but yeah. So, yeah, in the same summer, we had $3 billion films that all will end up by the end of it making massive amounts of profits. We're also still going to have some flops. So box office definitely still not 100%. Anyway, what say you? Let me jump back into the chat. I think there were some updates here. So Mr. Wink, thank you very much, Mr. Wink, for becoming a member once again at the Citizen of Asgard level. Mr. Wink, also thank you for the $2 super chat saying, I provide spam because I care. Yes, he is our pet troll here over at OMB Reviews. Also, I think my baby boy finally fell asleep at 8:45. Goodness gracious, son. Oh, that poor child. Anyway, I can finally take my headphones off. And now everything sounds weird because if you've ever listened to yourself on headphones, it's a very odd sound. It's a very odd sound. But Mr. Wink, thank you very much for becoming a citizen of Asgard and for being our pet troll. Hardwick says, did you hear the news about the new Jurassic World movie that's in development? It's going to be a standalone, not connected to the events of the last three, and Scarlett Johansson is playing the lead. And I was already uninterested when you mentioned Jurassic World, and now I'm completely uninterested because you mentioned Scarlett Johansson. None of those mean anything to me. Heartbreak Ridge, hello. Thank you for being a Citizen of Asgard member. Appreciate you. Thank you very much for becoming a member once again, and for being a member for 7 months in a row, actually. So thank you, Heartbreak Ridge. Thank you. Let's see. Snow Golem 13 over on Odyssey. Thank you for holding down the fort on Odyssey. Still not watching Deadpool Wolverine in theaters. I'm sure my movie buff friend will. So no money for me going to the woke machine. Yeah. And again, I support anyone who wants to do that. I'm also an AMC A-list member, and so I don't even really know exactly how financially that works. I don't know if AMC pays Disney or any other company the full amount of a ticket price, or if they get like a better deal on that, or how that works, because I'm paying AMC, but obviously AMC needs to pay something, right? I actually would love to pick the brain of someone in the AMC corporate structure to explain what percentage of your subscription to AMC A-List actually goes to the studios. Because I'm paying AMC, I'm not paying Disney, I'm not paying anyone else. But clearly, the money I pay, the tickets that I claim, because I can see 3 movies a week in any format. Okay, I'm still getting a ticket technically. It's just that the cost of my subscription covers everything else. But anyway, yeah, I support anyone who wants to avoid giving money to those, giving money to Disney, giving money to other companies, corporations, etc. But I also, of course, am like, all right, as long as you don't go after other people for living their life. Let's see, Snow Golem Borderland movie can go fudge off. Pardon my French. No, I appreciate the mention of fudge. It makes me hungry. Mr. Wink, it was me, Dio, that predicted this. Let's see. Heartbreak says, I'm in suburban Southwest Ohio, and the late IMAX showings on release day is 1/3 to 1/2 sold already. Well, there you go. For Deadpool Wolverine. Yeah, absolutely. Guillermo Gage, I had to say, I did a typo on the @Odin. It was at Odfin. I tried saying this. Puffs off Broadway. Okay, thank you. Oh, no problem. No problem. Yeah, it's very funny. It's very, very funny. Mr. Wink says, good night, Odin and unidentified persons here. Well, hey. Thank you very much for being here. The R says, I'd rather give my money to, and then nothing showed up there. But I know sometimes when there's links there, it doesn't show up. He says, I'd rather give my money to Odin. Appreciate it. By the way, Snow Golem, thank you very much for the, what do they call it on Odyssey? Hyper chat? Thank you for the 1 credit hyper chat about Borderlands, I should say. Appreciate you. Hardwick, are you interested in YouTube physical media reviewers? There's one in particular who is the best and most thorough of them all. Is it the Blu-ray Critic by chance? I don't typically watch them, to be perfectly honest. But if that's the one that you mean, or is it a Blu-ray, or is it Movie Reviewer 365? There's like one name that's like a 365, and then there's like a Blu-ray movie critic person. And I've watched them only a couple of times. I'm really not into that space all that much because I'm much more into just collecting the media myself. Snowgum, the message is get rid of woke and you won't go broke, not hard point of cash. Not hard point to catch. Message is get rid of the woke. Yeah. Here's the issue though, right, is I understand the mindset of, well, if we stop supporting these companies and they go away, and it's like, the issue is that there's still way too many people that are not of that mindset. So though it is true, right, because we think about how effective some boycotts can be, most boycotts in a general sense, like, for instance, we could argue there's been a boycott to a certain degree of Disney, and it really hasn't changed all that much when you think about it, right? They've still continued to do the same thing that they're doing, but it's because they have still so many regular everyday people that have no idea that any of this stuff is going on, that are still just that are oblivious to it. And that's the reason why it's so important for us to not cede the space. We should never abandon the space. So that's why it's so funny whenever I see criticisms of like FNT or of my channel or any other ones. It's like, why are you watching these movies? Why are you giving them this attention? Because if I don't, and if we don't, guess what? That means all you have left are the media shills who still have influence. Their influence is a lot less, but you don't know why their influence is a lot less, because there are people like us in the space. And I am one of the smallest portions of that, by the way. I'm definitely not tooting my own horn there. I'm going to give much more credit to people like Critical Drinker, especially. Probably more so than anyone when it comes to the movie review space, for having such a profound impact. But imagine if Critical Drinker was to give that space up and stop seeing Disney movies altogether, or stop seeing movies from specific companies, right? Guess what? Now you have lost that major voice. Anyway, Hardwick, the one I'm referring to goes by a YouTube channel, Damn Full Idealistic Crusader. Okay, yeah, never heard of that. He's the best physical media reviewer on YouTube. He occasionally streams with Midnight's Edge. Nice. But again, I really don't typically follow that stuff. Mr. Wink, that's a lie. Odin just loves watching terrible things. Okay, Mr. Wink. Whatever you say, Mr. Wink. Whatever you say. Oh, man, oh, man. All right. Well, we have reached the point of no return. And so we'll go ahead and start to wrap things up. Let's see. Abomination saying, without people pointing out the bad decisions in the movie, Barbie would have broken 2 billion, maybe. I don't know about that. Right? But that's a great example, because think about how many people actually have positive things to say about that movie. It's like, well, if only the people that liked the film saw it, and you had no people that could actually give you legitimate, objective criticism, constructive even criticism of the film, well, that creates a bit of a problem, right? And look, that's why I support not only people that boycott it. Hey, if you want to boycott it, full support for you. If you are wanting to do the old razzle-dazzle, as I like to call it, meaning either one, you are going to the theater, you're getting a movie ticket to something else, and then going into the theater for something else, hey, more power to you. I will obviously only... officially, I will neither confirm nor deny that I support you in that for I guess legal reasons, I guess. Or let's say you play the old razzle dazzle on the high seas. Okay. So those are, again, different ways that people will try to go about it, but we can't cede the space completely. And I guess one of the ways that I get around it, and again, I would love to know how the actual financial breakdown goes with AMC A-list members, because I never give direct money to the movies that I go to see that are from Disney or these other companies, because I give, again, my movie directly to AMC. I don't know exactly how much of that goes when I get my ticket in that way. Wendy Hunter says, good night, and everyone. Good night, Odin, and everyone else. Good night to you. Kili Chow, thank you for a great show. Thank you for being here. Good night, and God bless. Prince Screen, Cthulhu, have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you for the company, entertainment, absolutely. King and Rumsky on Rumble. Tell Mr. Wink he's wrong. You never watched The Meg 2. That's right. Funny thing, King and Rumsky. You should watch the stream on the Force of Light Entertainment channel. I was on their stream yesterday. And let's just say you will be happy. I give you a shout out. Jeremy Zakowski. Did you hear Godzilla -1 Blu-ray Deluxe? Yes, we talked about that earlier. But I don't want to buy from the Godzilla store. I'm going to be honest. I really hope that it becomes available on Amazon or Best Buy or Walmart. Again, that's a me thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Godzilla.com, but that's just a me thing. Kimberly G, Killing Shadowcat. Good night, everyone. Good night to you, Kimberly G. My back is starting to hurt as well, so I'm getting tired. Cthulhu says, wait, is it morally okay to steal from the devil? Immensely curious. Oh, man. Again, a little bit too in-depth question to put at the very end of the stream. What I will say is look up Thomas Aquinas on can you be morally justified to steal or lie? Aquinas has some very interesting thoughts on the matter, and it brings up some interesting scenarios. So that's what I would say to go to in that way. Snow Golem, I bet A-list or a premium member get a discount, just like mechanics at parts stores, like around 10 to 50%. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Does my ticket buying it from AMC, right, through the AMC program, does that mean the studio only gets like $2 for the ticket? Does it mean that it just, like whatever the net cost is? That would be an interesting premise, because theoretically that could actually be a better argument for it, because it means I'm giving the least amount of money I possibly can to Disney at the box office on an opening weekend. Again, I would love to pick someone's brain in corporate in AMC to figure out what that actual breakdown is. Heartbreak Ridge, cheers. Hopefully I remember to watch you next Monday. Yes, so that is the big change for anyone who may be coming in late or watching that at the fact. So we are now moving this stream to Mondays. So the Welcome to Asgard podcast will be back next week. The evening show will be back next week on a Monday evening, 7:30 p.m. for the first time. This will be the last time, one of the last times. And again, who knows? You never know when things can change. That we'll be having it at this Tuesday time slot. But tomorrow morning, so 10 a.m. Eastern time, we have our Good Morning Asgard podcast. So come back for the Welcome to Asgard podcast tomorrow, the Good Morning Asgard edition of it, where we'll talk about more stuff. And let's see, oh gosh, we'll have to talk about Acolyte, because there's another episode tonight, and there's 2 shows that I'm on. Friday Night Tights, check me out on Friday Night Tights, and also the Salty Saturday podcast on the Salty Nerd podcast YouTube channel, where we talk about it for hours and hours on end, and it drives me mad. And oh my gosh, I'm just glad there's only 1 episode left. And also, hey, we've got some good stuff coming up, everybody, because I was reminded by Michelle on Force of Light Entertainment last night, or I was at least reminded on Force of Light about it. Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai is not too far away, okay? So Acolyte has 1 more episode left next week, and then we've got Cobra Kai, first part of the last season. So excited, so pumped, cannot wait. Glad to have good things to look forward to. That, of course, the Deadpool Wolverine, I think, is also going to be pretty great as well. So anyway, that's going to be it for me, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Blessed Feast of St. Thomas More. Make sure you smash the like button, light up the fire button, and honestly smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And I'll end with this one, because it just honestly has been so much of tonight's stream. And after that, we will officially sign off. And so don't forget, when it comes to the box office numbers,
Time to see a real math magician at work.
gotta do the math. Anyway, you guys are great. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, let me find the right thing here. I'm so far behind today. It's so crazy. Anyway, all right. You guys are great. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Patreon, Subscribe Star, Locals, and YouTube members who are at the Chosen of Valhalla level. Starting off with my Patreon supporters, Father Luca Illich, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel, which is Eagle Writer, and Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel by the same name. To my Subscribe Star chosen members, Matt317, check out his Twitch channel by the same name, and also the K-Man, check him out at xtheboundaries.co, and a shout out also to my one Chosen of Valhalla YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Thank you again for being so much of a huge supporter of the channel, and to every one of my chosen members, if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, or if you want access to things like giveaways of Blu-rays, 4Ks, etc., and access to an exclusive podcast bonus material for members, check out the links in the video description below for all of those details. You guys are amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed month of the Sacred Heart, and as always, God bless.